Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. Paramananda Madhavam. Okay. All right. Let's read the verses that we covered last time. So verses 1, 2, and 3. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Saktamanaf Partha Yogam Yunjan Madashrayah Asamshayam Samagram Mam Yatha Nyasyasi Tatshrunu Jnanam Teham Savijnanam Idam Vakshamyasheshatah Yajñatva Neha Bhuyonyata Jnatavyam Avashishyate Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaschid Yatati Siddhaye Yatatamapi Siddhanam Kaschin Mam Veti Tattvataha. We read 4 also, so let's read that also. Bhumirapo nalo vayuhu khammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakritirashtadha. So, chapter 7 is Jnana Vijnana Yoga. Now, Bhagavan Krishna is telling Arjuna, now I want to tell you who I am in essence. But you must have your mind completely fixed in me. Maya saktamanaf partha yogam yunjan mad ashrayaha. So your mind must be completely fixed in me. I must be at the center. I must be your goal. And when your whole attention is on me, then you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. So I will tell you, but please listen. And Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that I will tell you this highest knowledge, knowing which nothing remains to be known. Whenever we learn something, there's always the fear that we will forget it. But when we know the knowledge of the self, we will never forget the self. We will never have that forgetfulness of the self anymore. When we know things of the world, we find out that the more and more we know, the less and less we know. So we actually find out how ignorant we are. But this knowledge actually removes all of our ignorance. And this knowledge is the ultimate knowledge, because once all the names and forms, if we think that we can know all the names and forms, it's too much. But once we know the substratum of the names and forms, then everything is known. And this is the ultimate knowledge because it removes the knower itself. So just awareness, consciousness alone remains. So he says, I'm going to tell you this beautiful knowledge. And I'm going to tell you jnanam and vijnanam, not only that knowledge as an indirect knowledge, but direct knowledge. Means I am going to reveal to you how to realize the self. And then he tells Arjuna, now what's about to come is a little bit serious. It's a serious matter. So in verse number 3, Arjuna, those who come to this path are very rare. Manushyanam sahasreshu kashchit yatati siddhaye. Very, very few actually come to this path. So many are engaged in so many other things in the world. But there are a few who come to me. And even amongst those few, some will come listen about me, but may not get my entire essence. And amongst those few, some may even think and reflect about me, but they might not go deep enough. Out of those, a few will really contemplate on my essence, and a few will realize me tattvataha, in my fullness, in my full essence. Very few will do that. And Arjuna, you are one of them. You are one of them because now you are with me. So Sri Krishna in this verse is telling us how blessed, how fortunate we are that we have come to this knowledge, we have come to this path, and how Bhagavan is actually going to reveal his identity to us. Now, what is that identity? So, in number 4, verse number 4, that's when Bhagavan starts to reveal his identity. So, numbers 4 to 7 is the whole identity revelation of Bhagavan, if you want to think about it that way. This is how he's revealing himself, slowly, slowly, slowly. And how he reveals himself is so fascinating because he takes us from the grossest to the subtlest, to that which is even beyond the gross and the subtle. So first, before we go into verse number 4 a little bit more, I just want to give you some background about Bhagavan, Ishvara, God. Whenever we talk about creation, there's always this question that Brahman, who is nameless, formless, pure awareness, pure consciousness, pure bliss, how does something like creation come out of Brahman? From that which is nameless, how do all these names come about? From that which is formless, how do all these forms, these various sizes and shapes come about? From that which is consciousness, how do inert objects come about? And from that which is of the nature of bliss, how is there sorrow coming about? How is there this paradox? How do we resolve this paradox in the world? The resolution is Maya. It's called Maya. That pure Brahman, with the power of Maya, takes the identity called Ishvara, or Bhagavan, or God. So when we talk about Ishvara, or Bhagavan, or God, it is Brahman with that power of Maya that creates this whole entire world. So Brahman on its own cannot create anything. Brahman with the power of Maya creates this world. Okay, so how is this world caused. How does it come about? Well, whenever we talk about causation, there are two kinds of causes. One is called the nimitta karana, the efficient cause, and the second is called upadana karana, the material cause. So, for example, for a pot to come about, there has to be a potter, an efficient, sentient, intelligent cause, a potter, and there has to be a material cause, the pot. And with the pot, the clay, let's say the clay. So when there's a potter and there's a clay, then a pot can come about. When, let us say, there's a carpenter, an intelligent cause, a carpenter, and when there's a material cause, wood, then furniture can come about. It is not that we just leave pieces of wood there in our living room and we come back tomorrow and it becomes a sofa set. It is not that we just leave atta in our kitchen table and then we come back 2 hours later and it becomes chapati. No, it doesn't work that way. We have to have a sentient cause. Material things cannot cause anything. Material things are inert. They're insentient. So therefore, it has to be these two things. That cause has to be the sentient cause and the material cause. Now, if you look at what science is saying, a lot of science, it's saying that creation comes from insentient inert things. But as we saw, that's not possible, because if you leave any insentient inert thing on the table in your room, it's not going to make anything. So there has to be some sentiency, some sentient power. Now, some people believe that God is only the sentient cause, but not the material cause. So God may be the sentient cause, but the material could be something else. Now, if we believe that, because like in the world, you see, the potter and the clay, they're different. The carpenter and the wood, they're different, right? So why can't it be that God is the sentient cause and something else is the material cause? Okay, if we take it that way, then what would there be other than God? What material would be there other than God? And if there is a material other than God, then God would not be infinite anymore, because there's something other than God. And if there was a material other than God, then where did the material come from? So there must be somebody more powerful than God. Correct? So there cannot be that God is the sentient cause. It cannot be that God is the sentient cause and something else is the material cause. It doesn't work logically also, if you see. So God is both the sentient and the material cause. And how this is given, it is given in our Upanishads like a spider. Like a spider is a sentient being. And from the spider itself, the web comes out. Correct? So from the spider itself, the web comes out, and that's how creation happens. So God is a sentient cause, God is a material cause. Okay, very good. Now there's another problem. If God is the sentient cause and the material cause, if God becomes this world, it will be a problem for God. Because whenever a cause becomes an effect, the cause becomes modified. For example, whenever a mother gives birth to a child, her whole body changes. She becomes completely modified. Whenever we go out and we exercise, we cause something to effect, for good health, etc., our body becomes modified. So whenever there is a cause and an effect coming from that cause, the cause also changes. Now, if God is the cause and produces an effect, and God changes or gets modified is a problem, because anything that gets modified, the last modification is destruction. Anything that changes, gets modified, eventually it will get destroyed. So God cannot become this world, actually. So then what's happening? What's happening is God is appearing as this world. So God is appearing as the sentient and material cause. God is appearing as this whole entire world. Like how? Can you give an example? Like dream. What happens in dream? But you forget yourself. And that dream mind appears as all the insentient things, as space, air, water, fire. And that dream mind also appears as different people in the dream. And that dream mind appears as the whole story. But when you wake up, you realize, oh, it's just a dream. It was just the dream mind appearing as all of these things. In fact, it was nothing but the dream mind alone. So in the same way, this truth, this Brahman, with the power of Maya, assuming the form of Ishvara, or assuming the identity of Ishvara, is appearing as this entire world. It is an appearance. It is an appearance in that truth. So whatever we're seeing now, Bhagavan is telling us, see this whole gross world and this subtle world, this is one type of appearance. Then he's going to say, see these jivas, these living beings, this is one type of appearance. And then he's going to say, I am the womb of all appearances. And then he's going to say, actually, I alone am. This is the thought flow. Okay? And it's very, very beautiful thought flow. He says this is who I am. This is who I am. So let us start now with verse number 4. Okay? So we read, Bhumihi is earth. Apaha, water. Annalaha, fire. Vayuhu, air. Come, space. Okay, so the 5 subtle elements. 5 subtle elements. In the shloka, the order is earth, water, fire, air, space. So that God appears as this 5 elements, 5 subtle elements. Ahankara. Okay, manaha, buddhi, eva, cha, and ahankara. Manaha, the mind here actually refers to the total mind. The buddhi or the intellect here refers to the total intellect. And the ahankara here actually refers to the avyakta or the unmanifest. So here this is taking from actually the Sankhya Philosophy. So here, if we look at the commentary, I'll tell you what it says. Manasaha karanam ahankara. So here we're talking about the mind, the cause of the total mind. The cause of the mind is the total mind. And buddhihi refers to the cause of the buddhi, which is the total intellect. And then when they say ahankara, it is avidya samyuktam avyaktam. It is the unmanifest. So the 5 subtle elements, the total mind, the total intellect, and the unmanifest, these are my Prakriti, my eightfold Prakriti. And he says these are my Prakriti, meaning that this Prakriti means nature. This is not independent of me. This is dependent on me. This is my eightfold nature. So this is what we call the lower Prakriti or the lower nature of God. Now he's going to tell us what is the higher nature. So let us see now verse number 5. Apareyamitastvanyam
अपरेयमितस्वन्याम्
prakritim vidhi me param
प्रकृतिं विद्धि मे पराम्
jiva bhuta mahabaho
जीवभूतां महाबाहो
yedam dharyate jagat
ययेदं धार्यते जगत्
apareyamitastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhuta mahabaho yayedam dharyate jagat. So he says aparayam, okay, means apara, this is the lower prakriti. Which is the lower prakriti or the lower nature? What was spoken of in verse number 4. The eightfold prakriti, that lower nature. Itaha tu anyam, but different from this, prakritim vidhi me param. Different from this lower prakriti, know my higher prakriti, para prakriti. Jiva bhutam, the very life element. Mahabaho, O mighty armed one. And yaya, by this, idam dharyate jagat. The whole world is upheld. Idam jagat, this world, dharyate, is upheld. So in verse number 4, what was spoken of is a lower prakriti. And here, what is spoken of is the higher prakriti by which the world is upheld. So the lower one, we are clear. It is called apara, lower. And it's those eightfold things. The higher one is actually that jiva, that which appears as jiva. That which appears as jiva. So that pure consciousness which appears as jiva, that is my higher prakriti. That pure awareness, in that awareness only, the lower prakriti gets enlivened. So I'll give you an example. This body, this mind, this intellect, even if we take it in the individual standpoint, this body, this mind, this intellect, this ego, this is all the lower prakriti. But what enlivens it is that consciousness. That consciousness comes through as reflected consciousness, and that enlivens this whole thing. And through that reflection of consciousness in the mind intellect equipment, this whole individual acts. So it is like the beautiful example that Gurudev has given. He has given the example of, think about electricity. Electricity and a bulb, right? So there's electricity, just pure electricity cannot express on its own, right? And that pure bulb, if you take a bulb, it's insentient. It cannot illumine, it cannot light up on its own. But in the presence of electricity, with the bulb there, through that filament, we have this light bulb that's expressing light. So the electricity gets to express, and the light bulb actually, it starts lighting up through this filament. So in the same way, this reflection of consciousness, this jiva, through that, the whole prakriti gets enlivened in the individual. And by this, the entire world is upheld. Upheld meaning When the two come together, when the reflection of consciousness with all of this matter comes together, then we start thinking, then we start doing, then we start wanting, then we start acting in this world, we get results, and when we get results, again we want more, and then again we act. We get results, and then again we want more. So by this, it is upheld, the whole world is upheld by all of the various jivas engaging in all of their various karmas. Yaya idam dharyate jagat. And this higher prakriti or the higher nature is different from the lower nature. Why is one called the lower nature? Why is one called the higher nature? The lower nature is called the lower nature because it is insentient. Like this body, mind, intellect, etc. is insentient. The higher nature, higher prakriti is sentient. The lower nature is also constantly changing. The higher nature is changeless. It is actually nothing but that pure awareness. The lower nature modifies, it changes, it modifies, and it's what we call ashuddha. It is impure. But the higher nature is shuddha, it is pure. The lower nature is a cause of bandha, is a cause of bondage, and the higher nature is a cause of liberation. You see, it's a very peculiar thing. It's a very peculiar thing because in that mind intellect equipment, there's the reflection of consciousness, right? So it's almost like the mind intellect equipment has a dual pull. It's almost like a part of me gets pulled towards matter, gets pulled towards this body or this world, these five senses, gets pulled towards matter. But a part of me, because there's the reflection of consciousness, gets pulled towards consciousness. Because I am made of these two prakritis. I am made of these two prakritis, the lower prakriti and the higher prakriti. So I get pulled in both directions. So as a seeker, what is my dharma? My dharma is to go towards the realm of consciousness and away from the realm of matter. When we go towards matter, it's called shava. Shava means dead body. It's called shava. When we go towards consciousness, it is called shiva or auspiciousness. So one is called shava, one is called shiva. So with these two, the whole world is enlivened. So think of all the gross things in the world, all the subtle things in the world, and that reflection of consciousness, not only in me, in all beings, that makes up the entire world. So he is saying that I am all. I am both this lower nature that appears insentient, and I am also this higher nature which appears sentient. This is my nature, these two. And then he goes on to say that I am the womb of everything. So we'll read now number 6. Etadhyonini bhutani
एतद्योनीनि भूतानि
sarvanityupadharaya
सर्वाणीत्युपधारय
aham kritsnasya jagataha
अहं कृत्स्नस्य जगतः
prabhavah pralayastatha.
प्रभवः प्रलयस्तथा.
Etad yonini bhutani sarvani tyupadharaya aham kritsnasya jagatah prabhavav pralayastatha. He says, etad yonini. These two prakritis are the womb of bhutani sarvani, all beings. Iti upadharaya, know this for certain. Aham kritsnasya jagataha prabhavaha, I am the source of the entire world. Kritsnasya, of the whole jagataha, world. Pralayaha, I am the dissolution of the entire world. Tatha, tatha here also means I am the sthiti karana. I am that which sustains the entire world. So know that these two prakritis are the womb of all beings. So I am the source and dissolution of the whole universe. So now here, what a beautiful thing. So we saw that there are two prakritis or two natures. What is the source? Where did they come from? Bhagavan says, I am the source. My two prakritis are the source of everything. Everything that you see is me. And I am the sustenance. Everything is sustained in me. And everything will dissolve in me. I am that. And the beautiful example in our Upanishads that is given is, if we take clay, right? So the pots, etc. Pots, pitcher, glass, they originate from clay, they are sustained in clay, and they dissolve in clay. So everything comes from that truth alone. So last week when I told you that, people were asking about what does our culture, our religion say about all beings or nature or Earth Day or taking care of the environment. We say that everything is God. It's inherent in our scripture. Everything is God. In fact, God alone is. There's nothing other than God, because everything comes from God, is sustained in God, and goes into Bhagavan. So there is that natural love, natural respect for everything. Now we will look at this from two standpoints, okay? First, we'll understand from the microcosmic standpoint, then the macrocosmic, so we can see what this means. Because whatever happens in the microcosm, it also happens in the macrocosm. So just think, when we awake, right? For us, we're talking about one day. The origin of our day, where does it come from? It comes from us, right? From that pure awareness, pure I, that whole day arises. It comes from us. And then in that awareness, in that I alone, the whole day is sustained, right? In my awareness, in presence, in consciousness, the whole day is sustained. There's an I, a general I that is going on there. Whole day is sustained. And in that consciousness, awareness again, the whole day is absorbed, right? So you and I can see that at our individual level, that consciousness is the womb of everything. It is the source, it is the sustenance, and it's the dissolution point. This is for us in a day. Now, what happens in terms of the whole world? The whole world, where does it arise from? It arises from that, again, that pure awareness. The whole entire world, it arises from pure awareness alone. It is sustained in awareness. It is dissolved in awareness. And it actually cannot exist without awareness. Nothing can exist without awareness. So thus, this awareness is the womb, it's the sthiti, the sustenance and the dissolution of everything. this method of lower Prakriti and higher Prakriti is one way to take us to pure awareness. But in our Upanishads, there may be different ways. Some of them will talk about creation through 5 elements. Some of them will talk about it through 3 elements. Some schools of philosophy will say there are 24 tattvas, there are 24 things of creation. There is one verse that I'll read to you from Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi Ji, and it's a very, very beautiful verse. It brings us back to that pure awareness. This is from Saddarshana. It's verse number 4. Arabhyate jiva jagat paratma tatvabhidhane namatam samastam idam trayam yavadaham mati syat sarvotamaham mati shunyaniஷ்ഠा. So what does he say? He says, matam samastam means all different philosophies. Samastam matam, all different philosophies. What do? Jiva jagat paratma tattva abhidhanena. They start naming all of these principles. They start naming the jiva, the individual being, jagat, the world, paramatma tattva, the supreme self. They start naming them, classifying them, seeing this is here, this is there, and doing all of that. And he says, all of this is there, arabhyate yavat aham mati syat. So as long as this I notion is there, the notion of I is there in all of us, all of this takes place. Because who is naming all of these principles? Who is classifying these principles? It's just us. It's these human beings who are naming, who are classifying, who are dividing. The I notion is doing that. So he says, this begins from the I notion. And idam trayam aham mati shunyaniஷ்ഠா sarvam uttama. So as long as this I notion exists, idam trayam, these 3 notions will exist. That there is an individual being, that there is the Paramatma, the supreme being, and there is the world. As long as the I notion exists, these 3 things will exist. So he says the best thing is aham mati shunyaniஷ்ಠா, abidance in the absence of the I notion. Sarva uttama. This is the best. So very, very beautifully, he just nips it in the bud. He says, instead of arguing about which is better, which path to take, hush, silence yourself. Think, where are all these notions coming from? They're coming from the I notion. And where is the I notion coming from? From pure consciousness alone. So the origin, source of everything is pure consciousness. And stop there. In Chandogya Upanishad, it also says, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. Everything is Brahman. Tat Jalan. Everything is Brahman. Tat, that Brahman. Jalan. Everything Jayate, rises from Brahman. Liyate, everything dissolves in Brahman. And everything is sustained in Brahman. It says, put your mind in that. It is like how we explain how dream is. That awareness alone appears as this entire world of beings, names, and forms. Now, because it is this truth, this awareness that's appearing as everything, actually then there is nothing but awareness. There's nothing but awareness, right? Because this awareness is appearing as everything. Now, if you remove awareness, then nothing can stand. So everything is just awareness alone. And to show that now, he's given verse number 7. It's a very, very famous verse in this chapter. Mattah parataram nanyata
Mattah parataram nanyat
kinchidasti dhananjaya
kinchidasti dhananjaya
Mai sarvamidam protam
Mayi sarvamidam prodam
Sutre manigana iva
Sutre manigana iva
Mattah parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya Mai sarvamidam protam Sutre manigana iva. So he says, Mattaha, other than me, parataram, higher than me, na anyat kinchit. There is nothing whatsoever higher than me. Na anyat kinchit asti. O Dhananjaya, O Arjuna, Mai sarvam idam. In me, all of this is protam. It's strung. Sutre, on a string, manigana iva. Manigana means like a cluster of gems. Huh? So there is nothing whatsoever higher than me, O Dhananjaya. All this is strung on me as clusters of gems on a string. Now, see here. So many times in Hinduism, people ask, okay, is Hinduism polytheistic? Is it monotheistic? We say that it's monist. So it's not that there are many, many gods. It's not there is only one God. It is there is only God. There is only God. God alone is. God alone is. There is nothing else. Mattaha, me, other than me, parataram, there is nothing other than me, Sri Krishna says. This whole world is just me. It's me alone. Na kinchit means even the speck of dust, there's nothing other than me. Everything is one. So he's coming to that non-duality. And this is the first line. The first line is where he establishes non-duality or Advaita. There's nothing other than me. Everything that you see, you hear, you smell, you taste, it's only me and me alone. But why can't I see you? Why can't I feel you? Can you give me an example so I can understand? So Sri Krishna says, Mai sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva. Just like we see pearls or gems strung in a necklace. Now, this is a very beautiful example and it has different aspects. So one is, first, whenever we see a nice necklace, a nice pearl necklace or necklace of gems, what happens is we get so attracted to that necklace, so attracted to it, that we forget about that which strings it together. Correct? We forget about that which strings it together because we're just so attracted with all the different names and forms, all the beads of the necklace, that no one pays attention to what strings it together. In the same way, we don't pay attention to that truth. We pay attention to all these different names and forms, but we don't pay attention to that truth. The beads on the necklace or the pearls, they are many. There are many, a lot of them there. And they're in varied size and shapes also, sometimes. Various size and shapes and colors. But the string underlying all of them is just one. It's just one. So though names and forms are various sizes and shapes, there's only one underlying reality in and through them. The necklace, the pearls of the necklace, right? Let us say you take that necklace and all of a sudden the string breaks. Then all of the beads are on the floor. They all get destroyed, right? They all get destroyed. So without that one truth, then the whole world of names and forms, it breaks down. It gets destroyed. It gets crushed. So just like there's one continuous string that puts all, in which all of these beads, these gems are strung, it holds them, it supports them. Even if it's unseen, it supports them. And it is that because of which they are sustained. In the same way, that one pure awareness, that is the truth upon which all of these names, these forms, these sizes, these shapes, upon which all of these are strung. So if we think about it now, there's only one limitation to this example. And the limitation in this example is that the string and the beads, they're different from each other. They are different from each other. But here, what we're saying is the string and the beads, the world, is the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing. The string itself appears as the beads. That truth itself appears as the names and the forms. So whenever people look at this world, they're not able to penetrate deep into that string. And it's the same with us, because we see so many names and forms and variety and color. Very few are able to penetrate to get to that string. So very beautifully in this text called Laghu Vakya Vritti. Laghu Vakya Vritti is a text that explains the Mahavakya, or the great statement, Aham Brahmasmi. There's an exercise that's given, and it refers to this example also. What it says is, first think about this. That in you, in your presence, in your world, there is an unbroken string. Throughout your life, or my life, our bodies may have changed in so many ways. Our bodies may have changed in so many ways. Yet there's some string of sameness. And our thoughts have changed. And even today, from time to time, moment to moment, they change. Our thoughts keep changing. But there is a string of awareness, a changeless string of awareness underlying all of those. Because the thoughts come and they go. Our personalities, they keep changing. We keep, assuming different identities, different roles. They keep changing. But there is a string that holds them together. That string is that string of awareness. It's a string of existence. But how do we recognize this string? So in that text, in Laghu Vakya Vritti, it says, in that seat of meditation, when you close your eyes, think of all thoughts as all beads, different beads. And think of awareness like that string. And so what you try to do is, in between the two beads, focus or you can't say focus or turn your awareness, but remain as that string. So in between two thoughts, there's a gap. That gap is that string of awareness. That gap is when that string of awareness becomes evident. So that string of awareness is in and through each thought. It's in and through each thought. But in the quiet mind, when there's a space between thoughts, the string of awareness becomes evident. So what it says is, slowly increase the span of the space. So probably now we can't understand what this space is, because our thoughts are so fast, one after the other. But in time, as we practice, just focus on that space and just keep focusing on that space and make that space wider and wider and wider. And when we do that, that string of awareness becomes incredibly evident. So that is that string. That is that string without which nothing can exist, without which nothing actually is. And that awareness appears as everything. So here, mattaha parataram na anyat. Other than me means Bhagavan Krishna says, other than that truth, that pure awareness, there's actually nothing else. Oh Dhananjaya, there's actually nothing else. Everything is only me. Everything is only that truth. So I'm just going to put the thought flow together, right? So what we saw now in verse number 4 is first that lower Prakriti says, I appear as this lower Prakriti. I am the material cause, a lower Prakriti. I appear as these elements, the mind, the intellect, the ego. And then in verse 5, I am also the sentient cause. I appear as that jiva. All living beings, I appear as all of that. And if you trace from where all of that came in verse number 6, I am the source of all of it. I'm the source of all of it. I'm the sustenance of all of it. And into me, they all dissolve. Okay, very good. So we might think there is God and there is the world. No. Then in verse number 7, he says, that world is nothing but an appearance of me. I alone am appearing as this world. There is nothing other than me. So when we also look at it from several standpoints, there are people who will see this world as incredibly real, incredibly alive and vibrant and there. And there are those people who see this world as Maya. It's just all a play. It's just all Maya. But the highest standpoint is to see it as Brahman and Brahman alone. It is only Brahman. It is only Brahman and Brahman alone. And when that truth is realized, then interacting with the world is a whole different ball game. It's a whole different era. What happens when we interact in the world with this kind of realization that everything is actually Brahman? So there will be no RIP. I shared this in one of the classes. RIP means there will be no resistance, R, insistence, I, and P, persistence. So what is the resistance? Resistance means that we will no longer resist anything. We will no longer resist things from coming to us because it is all that one truth. If it has to come, it will come. Let it come. It is all that truth anyway. So there's no resisting something, no being afraid of it, no trying to push it away. Just let it come. There's also no insisting that it has to be this way and it has to be that way and it should happen like this. No, whatever has to happen will happen. And there's no persistence in the sense that there's no persisting in the world anymore to gain joy, to gain happiness, to gain bliss. There's no more chasing the world. Because what are you chasing? It is just yourself appearing as everything. It's very funny, isn't it? If I say, I want to seek my hand, I want to gain my hand, or I want to gain my face, or I want to gain my leg, it is very silly, isn't it? So upon the realization that there is nothing other than this pure awareness, then why would we go run after anything? Why would we persist, chase it? It is like chasing our own selves, right? So if we keep contemplating on this, if we keep thinking about this, then the way we live life will be very, very different. Within us, we will just see that truth. Outside of us, we will see that truth. In fact, there is no inside or outside. There is just that truth alone. Whether eyes closed, whether eyes open, that alone is there. That is the nature of God. That's the nature of God. So very beautifully, Shri Krishna has given it in these verses. Now, he says, if there are some who are not able to recognize, the string of awareness amidst all of these names and forms, then don't worry. I will give you other ways to also recognize my splendor. Those verses we will take up next week. Okay? All right. Om. 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 Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.